going to do our sunset on the water lighthouse painting. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to sketch just my horizon line and my lighthouse. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out exactly where I want to go with my horizon. I want to be able to have a couple different shades of blue going in here. Then I want to get a little bit of pink going in here. Then I want to get a little bit of yellow going in here. I don't want to cut my canvas in half and just make it sky and water. I want to make it a little bit more interesting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go just a little bit above my halfway point. Now when you're doing a horizon, it is important to go as straight as possible with your line, because if you don't, it's going to look like the world is teetering and tipped. And so we do want to try and make sure that our line is as straight as possible. Now again, it's not going to be perfect. We are not robots, and that's okay. But we just want to keep that in mind. If all of a sudden you see this side like really dip down, you do want to take care of that. You do want to go ahead and erase it and try it again. Now I'm going to keep this part kind of simple here, and I'm just going to make the building part of my lighthouse starting right at that horizon line. It's just going to kind of help keep it a little easier. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw an angled line coming out here. Now I don't want it to come all the way across the canvas. I just want it to go almost like if here's the halfway point, I'm going to go just before that halfway point. So there it is. There's my horizon. There's going to be a little bit of a level right here. So there's a rectangle that we're going to end up filling in. And then we're going to have a railing, but we're not going to draw that part out. It's going to be easier to go ahead and paint that in afterwards, because we're going to be blending some colors here. So I don't want to get too crazy with where I draw, because it's going to be harder to get in here. So instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the base of the light, which is just a square. And then I'm going to make a little bit of a curved line, just a little curve. That's going to be the actual light of the lighthouse. And then I'm going to simply make a triangle top just to get my shape here. So all I'm going to do is come down like this. So there is my lighthouse. Now, the other thing that I'm going to do is just to add a little bit of interest, more interest I should say. I'm going to make a little bit of land coming out here like that. So there's like a little shoreline here. And we might put like a little tree, thinking about where we are. Maybe we're up north somewhere. And the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to blend my colors, and I'm going to start with the sky and I'm going to work my way down the canvas into the water. When I blend these colors, I want to make sure that both of my colors are wet as I go. I can't blend my colors if they're dry, so I need all of my colors to be wet. So one of the things as we start doing things like this, we want to work pretty quickly. That doesn't mean rush. That doesn't mean get worried about, oh, I gotta, go really fast. It just means be aware of where you're painting and whether or not that paint is wet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by dipping into my dark blue. And because this is a sunset, I do want to keep it as dark as I have it. And I'm going to go ahead, I've got my biggest brush. I completely loaded both sides. And I'm just going to go back and forth. I don't want to get a ton of the canvas covered in blue, because I do want my sunset here. But I'm just going to go back and forth like this. And then I'm going to wipe off the excess blue. See how I'm pressing down, and that's pushing that paint out of my brush and onto my canvas. And then I'm going to go ahead, because I want it to lighten, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add some white here. I didn't even wash off my brush. Now, you can see right here, I have two bands of color. I personally don't want two bands of color. I want them to blend together. In order to blend together, we need both of these colors to be wet, right? So we know that they're still wet. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep going over them back and forth. And as I keep going over them back and forth, you can see those bands disappear. And now they're blended together. So that's what you want to do anytime you want to blend your colors. When you're blending your colors, you also want to be aware of what colors are going to blend nicely and what colors are going to make a color that you don't necessarily want. So again, right here, I got right up close to that roof, but now look, I've got a little bit of a weird thing going on. So I'm going to tap into my dark blue again. Just going to add some dark blue up here. And I'm going to rinse this brush out a little bit. Dry it off completely so nothing drips. And then again, just blend right over. So we've got those blues nice and blended. The next color that I'm going to blend into is going to be pink. So I'm going to use my red, but I do not want it to be screaming pink. So I'm going to use some white, and I'm going to lighten that up. And at first, it's going to look kind of purplish because we're mixing the blues and reds together, right? So the blues and reds would make a purple color, but see how I keep going back over and over and over it? That's what's blending those colors together. Just adding some white here. Lighten it a little bit more. So I'm going to let it have just that little bit of purple in the sky, just like that. Get up real close here, just like I did with the blue. And again, I want to make sure that I keep going back and forth with my brush. It's going to make it look like a nice smooth sky. No crazy stormy night. I'm going to rinse off this brush completely. I'm going to dry it off completely. Again, I don't want any surprises. And then I'm going to make just pink now. So I've got just white and a touch of red. So it's nice and soft here. It's really soft as we go down. And again, I keep going over it because that's what's going to blend those colors nice together. Add a couple darker streaks in here. And I can go right up. And as long as those colors are wet, I can just keep moving it around. Then I can dip right into my yellow, dip a little bit into my white. You can start mixing those together. Now again, when I mix the pinks and the yellows together, and that little bit of white, it's going to make a softer kind of orange, peach color. And I want it to be pretty soft here. I don't want it to be too crazy because I want it to get bright yellow as it's closest to the sun. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to rinse off this brush. I'm going to take my smaller brush, I'm going to roll it into my yellow paint, just like that. I'm going to figure out where I want my sun to be. I think I'm just going to draw a half circle right here. I'm going to add just a little bit of white here. Kind of fill that in. So we've got it just like that. And then I'm going to clean off that brush. Use the medium brush to do yellow and white. Just yellow and white. I don't want to mix any other colors now. And I'm going to go right down to that horizon line. So we've got just a really subtle, nice sunset going in here. Just like that. Now, if your yellow's too dark and you can't see your sun, make sure that you've added white to this yellow and make sure that your sun is just that bright yellow. And that's going to help a little bit. If you even wanted to, you could mix that little bit of orange in here. You don't want to do a ton, but you can get a little orange going in here. And you want to make it rounded brush strokes. And that's going to differentiate between the sky and the sun there. Clean that off. Get just yellow again. Soften that line a little bit. So you've got a nice, pretty sunset going. The other thing that you can paint while you're at it with this yellow is we can get the light in the lighthouse. So I've got just yellow on my medium brush. And I'm going to paint just under that triangle. So you want to be careful that you're not painting this one too. You just want this little rectangle. It's got kind of a rounded edge, right? Just like that. So we've got our light painted in here. Now if I were to go right into my dark blue and go along my water line here, it could be okay, but it might not be. It depends on how much paint you've used and whether or not that's dry. If it's wet and I go right in with my blue, I'm going to make green. My sky is going to start to look a little stormy. So what I'd rather do is I would rather make sure my brushes are nice and cleaned off, and I would rather start painting my lighthouse white, just because then it'll give that some time to dry. So I've loaded my brush both sides, and I'm just going to go ahead and paint. And yes, you need to paint the white even though it's already white. But that's so that you get a nice finished canvas. So I'm just going to go ahead and fill in this whole thing. Now, when you're painting white on white, it is important to check, tip your canvas around, because you'll be able to see what spots you've missed, if you've missed any. And it's important to go ahead and fill those in. So now that's painted. And I don't want to grab it there because I'm going to get a big old thumbprint. And then what I can do while I'm still waiting for that sky to dry is I can make a little bit of brown. So what I can do is, I think for this one I'm going to use a little bit of red and a little bit of blue. And I've got some purple in here. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add some yellow. And it's going to make brown. So we're making some sand for the water line. I'm going to lighten it up by using a little bit of white. Use even a little bit more yellow. There we go. Now it's getting lighter. And And then we want to fill in this sandy part of the beach. Just like that. We're going to give it just a little bit of a lighter side here by adding white, because that's where the sun's hitting it. Like that. So we've got that going. Then I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to rinse off that brush, get it all nice and dry. I'm going to dip into my black, and I'm going to go ahead and paint this triangle. It's the roof. Because of where my canvas is wet, I'm going to turn it upside down. And I'm going to use that flat edge. Go carefully. And then fill in this triangle. Now again, if it's easier for you to use your small brush and give yourself an outline first, definitely go ahead and do that, whatever makes you more comfortable. There we go. And then I am also going to add just a little bit of white to my black so that I can make some gray. And I'm going to make the base of my light gray. Just like that. And then I can paint in this longer rectangle. And gray as well. Now I did just get a little clumsy with that big brush, so I'm going to go ahead and rinse that off. And I'm going to take my sky is dry, so I can hold it this way. But I'm going to take my littlest brush, going to make that gray, rolling it into the paint here. And I'm just going to fix that line. Gotta make sure that I've got enough on my brush. If I don't have enough, it's gonna kind of give me the same type of line. There we go. Now I got it. And give it a nice straight edge here as well. So we've got that going. All right. So the next thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna rinse off this brush. My lighthouse is almost dry, and I can see that it is dry right here, so I'm going to be able to hold on to it there. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to paint my water. So I'm going to take this biggest brush, make sure it's all nice and clean, dry it off. I'm going to dip into my dark blue here, and I'm even going to dip a little bit into my black. I don't need a ton, just a small amount. I don't know if you can see this. I just used a small amount, so when I darken this water, just a smidge. And I'm going to come, and I'm going to use that flat part of the brush here. And I'm just going to go as straight as I can along this water line here. Now again, as I go to do this, it's going to be important if I want it to look like a nice, calm night. I'm going to keep using my brush strokes this way. And I just added blue now, so I didn't add any more black. I'm just adding that regular blue. So I gave myself an edge to work with, but then I'm going to spread that paint out. I'm going to go ahead and keep it smooth waters by going back and forth. And I'm going to come down around here. Smooth this paint out here. Now I'm going to add just a touch of that black. Just to add a little bit as I go into some spots. So there's a little bit of color change in there. Not a ton. And I can do the same thing with the white. Get some white on my brush. Blend those in. Fill in this whole area. Still going back and forth with my brush. Come right up to my sand here. Fill in all of these spaces. Dip a little bit into my white again. Just gonna drag it along here. Just like that. Good. There's some water. I'm going to go ahead and clean off that brush now. Did get a little crazy here on the beach. I want to make sure that I get that back to normal. Rinse that brush out. And then I'm going to mix a little bit of green. Because we got the lighthouse here. I'm going to make it up north. So we're going to give it a nice little tree here. So I mixed some yellow and green. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to take the flat brush, the medium size, and I'm going to wisp back and forth and come down and keep coming down. If you look, the angle that I'm coming, it's a little curved. Okay, so I'm going to keep coming a little bit curved here. Got some up north trees going. Just like that. Not worried about if that blue blends, because blue is mixed in to make green, so I'm not worried about that. I'm going to add just a little bit more yellow. Just like that. Could make a couple going this way. It's going right down to the ground. And then we can make that green even a little bit darker. We add a little bit of black so that it turns a little bit darker of a green. You can see some little shadows in here. Take a little bit more yellow and you can just kind of play with it, but you want to see how the brush strokes are going kind of every which way here. Just like that. So we've got our little tree. And then if we want to here, we can do our railing. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take my smallest brush here, my detail brush. I'm going to roll it into my black so it's nice and covered. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come just inside and go straight up and down. As straight as I can. Remember, as hard as I press, that's how wide of a line I'm going to get. So the harder you press, the wider the line. So if you don't want too wide of a line, don't want to press too hard. And then I'm going to go just into the light and make as straight of a line as I can coming across this way. Now you can see I'm wide here and I'm thin here, so I'm going to widen this line just a little bit. Give myself a better angle. Just like that. And I'm going to give myself just a couple little spindles here. Again, I'm going to go straight up and down as best as I can. Find a starting point and a stopping point and simply lift off. Starting point, stopping point, lift off. And you want to try and keep these spaced as equally as you can apart. So you've got that. And then we can even take a little bit, make some gray while we've got that black on our brush. And we can give our light just a little bit of an outline here. Just like that. And then rinse that brush off really good here. Dip into our white. Oh, got some water on there. Just going to mix it in really good. And then I'm going to dry off this brush. Roll it in the white. Just put it nice nice and loaded. And I'm just going to give it a little line here. Barely touching it, just like that. And then I can make that a little bit of gray again. I don't want it too dark, but I don't want it too light. I'm going to roll that in the paint so all my bristles are nice and stuck together. And then I'm just going to give a little building, a little outline down the painting to the edge of the canvas. As straight as I can, as carefully as I can, remembering that as hard as I press will determine the size of the line. So the harder I press, the wider the line, the softer I press, the thinner the line. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get some black, roll it onto my brush. I got a little bit of water in there because I want it to be able to be nice and smooth. I'm going to make a window here. And I'm going to go ahead and wipe off this brush, get that extra water off, no surprises. And roll right into that black. Get those bristles all stuck together, decide where I want my window. Now, what's important about this window is that my lines are still straight up and down, but you're going to see that my right one is just slightly higher than my left line. I'm going to curve it down just a little bit. I got a little curve to it. And then clean out that brush. I'm going to go back to my medium brush, make sure it's nice and dry, and I'm going to go back into that gray that I had mixed. I'm going to paint in that window. I'm okay if that black goes in just a smidge. I don't want to lose my black, but I'm okay if it goes in just a smidge. In fact, I'm going to even add a little. Remember, make sure when you're anchoring yourself on your painting that you make sure that everything's dry. Then with that gray still on there, I'm going to add some white now. And I'm going to take my medium brush and I'm going to make some rounded brush strokes here. I don't want to completely lose my white color, so I'm going to go back over it with white. I'm just adding a little fun shading here. Don't need to add too much. But by doing our brush strokes this way, it's going to look more rounded. It's a round lighthouse instead of making it look very flat and boxed like. I can go a little thinner as I come up to this window here. So you can see clean that off a little bit. Again, get it nice and dry. We don't want any surprises. Add just white to blend that edge a little bit in more. Get all the way up here. Got just a little. And it's just going to look a little bit more rounded. Do just a little at the top here. Like that. Now we're going to go ahead, take just that white flat brush here. Again, we've got that water line, so we do want to add just a little bit of white. You can kind of bounce around here because the water never hits exactly the same in each spot. I'm not going to be able to see around that edge, so I'm going to come out just a little bit like this. Got some reflections going in here. And I'm going to take the same thing. I'm going to add just a few little highlights with my white, with that medium brush. And again, I'm going to watch where my strokes are going. At the bottom here, I'm going to let them go a couple different ways. So like that. And I'm going to dip into my yellow just a little bit. Now this blue is dry. If I were to take yellow and go onto my blue and it was wet, it's going to make green, and I don't want that, but I do want a little bit of a reflection of my sun. So I'm not going to go wider than my sun. I'm not going to go all the way to here. I'm just going to go just in front of my sun. Just a couple quick little strokes like this. And a little reflection. And then if you want, again, now that that blue's dry, we got some blends in there with the white, but now we can add just a couple little more reflections. Now to do that, I don't want them to be too harsh, so I'm going to mix a little bit of water into my white so that it's a little bit thinner. Now again, I don't want it to drip off my brush. If it's dripping, there's too much water. I'm a little bit nervous. So I'm going to go ahead and dry off my brush, dip back into that white. Now it should be good. And then I can just add a couple little reflections this way. Just go as far down as you want. Make as few or as many as you want. Just like that. So then you can go ahead, clean out those brushes, get them all ready for next time. Check everything out, see if there's anything that you want to change, if there's any edges that you want to make a little bit different here. You could even, now just for kicks, you could even take this side of your brush and you could dip it into your white. And just in that dark blue, get those first couple stars that you're going to see. At sunset, you can make them smaller in some spots and even lighter in some spots. Maybe make one just underneath there. So you could even do that. And that's it. You're going to rinse off both sides of that brush then. So check everything out. Make sure it's exactly how you want it. And then you're good to go. Good job, guys.